Should be live. Hey everybody, go ahead and say hi in the chat. Let's start sharing around the stream. It is the weekly wins on Friday. This is our new weekly thing on Friday. People really like it. I really like it. It's a lot of fun and a good way to kind of spread some positivity before the weekend. So if this is your first time tuning into this, the way this works is I will go through and showcase all of the wins on our weekly wins thread. Next week's thread is already live on the forum. You can check it out in the description, and you can join it right now and leave your win right now if you want to. We already have one for the stream next week. This week I'm going to be showcasing Armored Pixel's win as like the big highlight win that we'll start with, which is going to be how they have kind of escaped Apple's walled garden, which is really beneficial to anybody who might be wanting to do that. There's a lot of people in our community who also enjoy Apple's walled garden and think that it's better than other big tech companies. So it's a good reminder that everyone has different goals and everyone's chasing after different things on their journey. So this is something that Armored Pixels wanted to do, which is to escape Apple Garden. We'll talk about why they might want to do that and how they did that. And along the way, feel free to leave your wins or any of your questions right here in the live chat, and I'll be happy to answer them towards the end. If you've never been to one of these before, I will go through the thread, share with you all the wins, we'll spread some love, we'll congratulate people, maybe we'll diss some people here and there. Not very much of that probably. And then afterwards I'll kind of just open it up and we'll just do kind of a more generic live stream format where I'll be with you all in the live chat. But please leave your comments along the way because I scroll back up, even though it kills me every time because the YouTube history thing sucks. I will go back. So why don't we just get started? And I'm going to start with Armored Pixels, who is a Techlorian, so thank you for supporting what we do over here. And to kind of go back to what I was saying, they have started to migrate away from the Apple ecosystem. Now, before we even talk about their exact win, why might someone want to leave the Apple ecosystem? You know, especially if you have access to ADP, where you get end-to-end encryption in the Apple ecosystem, it's not a terrible place to be. It's actually really hard to get the same features in the Apple iCloud ecosystem with the integration, with all of the usability benefits, and some pretty solid security because, again, it's end-to-end encrypted. Now, there are still some problems with this, though. One, a lot of people don't like Apple's hardware, right? And that's a very subjective thing, or they don't like their software. And we all know notoriously that Apple locks you into their way of doing things. So if you're somebody who doesn't like Apple's way of doing things, it doesn't matter what the security or the benefits are going to be there or the usability. It's just not something you want a part of. The other reason is probably the big one, is that you are very trapped in Apple's ecosystem. If you ever want to leave, if you've ever tried to leave, you know how hard it is to do that. And it doesn't really interoperate with other services or other operating systems very nicely. So there's a lot of reasons why someone might want to do this. And they've decided they're going to do it by starting by migrating to Apple Notes to standard notes. This is a great place to start, and actually probably one of the easiest places to start, right? Like, Notes programs that are not Apple's tend to be very open. They're compatible on all operating systems, including iOS and macOS, or most of them in the web as well. Standard Notes is fantastic. They are, I think, acquired. It's kind of unclear. They never really specified, as far as I can tell, but there was some kind of partnership or acquisition with Proton. So you are getting a pretty big team behind Standard Notes, and I've heard a lot of people enjoy Standard Notes. It's open source and cross-compatible. A lot of people like Notesnook as well. Full disclosure, they sponsor like most of our videos, but they don't sponsor our streams. I don't have any reason to say that they're not a good option as well. They're open source and they are also compatible on all operating systems. I think the two big choices I see people make for Apple Notes alternatives is Standard Notes and Notesnook. So try them both. They're both, I think, free to try. I think Standard Notes is free to try, so try them out, see which one clicks better for you. I personally also really like Crypty. It's open source and only web-based, but it's a little bit different from Apple Notes in the way it works. So just try all three of them out and see which clicks best for you. The next thing they did is they migrated away from Apple Photos, and I think of all three of these, that's actually the toughest one. A lot of people have their lives in Apple Photos, and actually exporting your data and importing it into something else is pretty tough. And even Entei, Entei is a really great service. They're open source, and it's like Apple Photos, Google Photos alternative with end-to-end encryption, really solid stuff. And I should add that Standard Notes and NoteSnook and Crypty are also all end-to-end encrypted as well, back for the notes section. But for the photos section, I don't even think the Entei team would have a hard time saying that Entei doesn't have all of the same usability and the features that you're going to find in something like Apple or Google Photos yet. So I will say that that's probably the toughest transition, and getting those over there is a huge win, so congrats. And then Apple Calendar, I think, is probably one of the easier ones because you can kind of just export your ICS files and then import them and then kind of just move any feeds over. I think the hardest part is now you have to use Proton Calendar, which I'm personally not thrilled with. I think it's pretty good for the privacy and security side of things, but if anyone's used it for like usability, I can't say it's been my favorite, but that's pretty personal preference. So they added some notes. They didn't realize how many features come with the free tier of standard notes, so definitely check that out if you enjoy them. Again, there's also NoteSnook and Crypty as well if you don't like standard notes for whatever reason, but whatever works for you, that's kind of like what works best for you. They also seem to like Entei, and they also said they want to try out their self-hosting options. So this is one other thing that Apple will never let you do ever in the history of Infinity or whatever. You can actually own your own frickin' data, right? Like you can host it on your own server and it's all yours. You host it yourself. Pretty cool stuff. I personally haven't really seen many people who do self-host Entei and standard notes. So if you do go on that journey, please update us on a weekly wins, because that's not something I've heard many people talk about. Normally people will self-host a NAS, like that's what I do, or they'll self-host Nextcloud, or they'll use some other ecosystem. So not a very common thing. So please let me know if that works for you. And that's also probably a cheaper way to get some more storage. So just wanted to give a massive congrats to Armored Pixels. Definitely go ahead and leave some confetti here. Let me see, can I do it? Yeah, I can. Oh yeah. Feel free to leave some confetti for Armored Pixels. I think it's probably the biggest win, just because like it's easy to write out like these 3 things, but if any of you have actually done any of these things before, you'll know that it's like a massive order, like you have to go step by step, transfer all of your notes, make sure they all transfer properly, get used to a whole new interface. It's a lot of work. So big props, and I hope that this like breakdown can help anybody who might be wanting to escape the Apple ecosystem for one reason or another, go on that journey. There are a lot of other parts of the Apple ecosystem that you would need to replace. So if that's something you want a dedicated video on, let me know. If there's enough demand for that, that's something I'm sure we can make happen. So with that said, before I start going through the thread, we have some more viewers. So again, just going to recap everything for the new viewers. 1, share this live stream around. The more people, the better. 2, the way this is going to work is I'm going to go through our weekly wins, which there are quite a few. So I'm going to go ahead and just go through each of them, showcase some of people's wins in the community. And if you want to join next week's, it's already live on the forum, and you can join that in the description. And before I go ahead and start tackling these, just kind of check the live chat, make sure that, I should have checked to see if people can even hear me. I would have assumed that someone would have said something though. It is alive. Daryl says, what's up? Nice to see you, Daryl. Thank you, everyone. We've already passed 100 viewers, it looks like. So if you're a viewer, feel free to like leave comments, leave questions, leave your wins. Let's go ahead and get involved with each other here. More people, the better. It's crazy how the term ecosystem is seen as consumer benefit when it's actually just a hard limitation. Ecosystems suck, widespread compatibility is good. Yeah, so it's really interesting. And actually, I might add just like an asterisk to what you're saying. I think ecosystems can be good, but I think what isn't good is when they say like proprietary ecosystem. Like this is always my big red flag anytime there's a service that reaches out to me for the first time and they're like, Henry, we have this new encryption, check it out. And then you go on their website and the website goes, we have this proprietary technology. It's so proprietary, it's so good that no one knows what it is, only we do. And it's like, okay, yeah, red flag alert, not good, stay away, run away. So I think, just to kind of speak to what you're saying here, I think an ecosystem can be really good. Ecosystems can be open. They can operate with other things outside of the ecosystem. But ecosystems, if they're a walled garden, can be really bad. And I do agree that a lot of these technologies are sold as benefits to consumers, but they're really, just there to kind of screw over a lot of people. So just be careful with that and make sure to analyze what a subscription or an ecosystem is providing you on the whole. Got my family to switch over from Gmail to Proton this week. Congrats. If you're still in the chat, which I hope you are, did anyone have any issues? And if so, what were they? I feel like there's always one feature that someone doesn't know is unique to the Gmail suite, for example, and they go, why isn't this in Proton? And so if there's any issues, definitely share. I haven't seen this, but there's a ton of really big, I don't know. Anytime I see something, it's like something is insecure. It's just kind of silly to me, actually. There are very few things out there, even things as bad as this is hard for me to say. I hate Facebook. If you've been on this channel, I think Facebook's my biggest enemy. But I can't even say that Facebook is simply insecure. How do you group up all of the possible threats, all of the possible vulnerabilities, all the possible things that they do to combat those vulnerabilities into one word of it's insecure or secure? It's just not that binary. So I don't know which article exactly you're referring to, but I have seen countless articles written that target Linux's security model, and many of them might bring up good points, but they lose sight of the ultimate. They don't zoom out. It's easy to look at individual issues, but then they look at those issues and go, therefore, it's completely insecure. No one should touch it, which is not my takeaway from it, nor should it be most people's takeaway from it. And we see this we just don't see these problems in other areas. When you look at nutrition science, for example, nutrition science is oh, here's the data and here's the science and here's the problem with this, this, and this. But they don't normally, the same researchers that find those issues don't normally say, therefore, this is bad and this is good. That's not normally how that's handled. So just loose thoughts. I don't know exactly what you're referring to, but if I was to look at whatever article you're talking about, my stance would probably be pretty similar to that. Welcome. I'll be listening. Have a nice day. It's nice to see you again. Apple's hardware is too expensive. Yeah, I've heard mixed things. I actually don't mind Apple's hardware that much. I think it's actually better than a lot of hardware that you'll find on especially their laptops on the PC side of things. As for whether or not it's worth the price is definitely another question. And obviously it's all personal preference. Let's see. Found your channel a month ago. Welcome, Niche. Glad to have you. We got a pretty big surge in the last month. The Apple UK end-to-end encryption stuff is pretty good. Brought in a lot of people, and I'm glad people are waking up and getting the message that encryption is important. And it sucks. It's always some government doing something stupid. That's what wakes people up and gets people involved. But hey, if that's what it takes, then you're here, and that's what's important. Yeah, this is the article that came to mind when I was talking. And yeah, my statements earlier are exactly my statements now. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the wins. Feel free to keep leaving comments, chats. So we're going to go up to the top here. Old Guy says they convinced the person who had all their online accounts hacked recently to start using a password manager. They explained why having different long and random passwords for each account was important. That was pretty easy as he was still in the process of recovering access to the accounts. They explained that having different long and random passwords was basically impossible without a password manager. It was a little surprising to me that they hadn't even heard of them. Okay, lots of lessons here. And again, some of these things might seem simple if you've been following this channel for a long time, but that's why they're all the more important, because you have to be able to step back and put yourself in the position of when you were just learning about all of this stuff. And the reality is a lot of people out there might have never even heard of what a password manager is. So this is why just basics are important. How do you memorize all your passwords? A lot of people say, well, I use a similar password, or I just add, the name of the site at the end of the password or something like that. A lot of people have a system like this, or they keep it on a notes document. You say, well, look, Those are fine, but they're not random enough. And here's why. Because hackers actually, if they breach one of your accounts, they can use that password to try to break into your other accounts. And that's one of the most common ways that people deal with identity theft or get their finances stolen from their bank account, or they get their email hacked into, etc. Like, give them real actionable consequences to what they're doing. And from there, you just give them some solutions. It doesn't have to just be one solution. People don't like being given one solution. So tell them, look, even your browser's password manager is better than nothing. But I really recommend something that's cross-platform. So, if you decide to get a new phone later on, you can still use the same password manager. And also, using something more dedicated is really solid. So then you might recommend them Bitwarden. And so people are much more susceptible to listen to what you're saying if you keep them kind of as the focus. Don't just give them information coming from your own perspective. See why they might be concerned about something, find what clicks for them, and then give them solutions that are applicable to them. That's what's really important. And I think it sounds like old guy. I'm reading between the lines here, but I don't think they could have got someone using a password manager if they weren't doing those things. So good job to old guy and good job to their friend who's a little bit safer because of that, possibly a lot safer. Let's see. Personal win is making use of virtual machines for testing out various Linux distros, compartmentalizing certain activities, and trying out software I'm not sure I should trust yet. Yes, great job. I think I covered this in the first stream or last week's stream. This is week 3, so welcome to week 3. Virtual machines, super good for compartmentalizing things, and for pretty much the 3 use cases that they presented here. Anytime I want to test out a new operating system, or there's, I have to do this a lot back here because for reviews and for videos and guides, like the Cryptomator review I did was in 2 different virtual machines. One was a Mac OS one and one was a Ubuntu one. And if you have to review something new every week as your job, you don't want to be installing it on your main OS because it gets cluttered and you eventually install something bad. They probably, I hope, fix this problem, but there's a story I have. I think it was called Fast VPN or Fastest VPN. I think it was Fastest VPN. Back when we did VPN reviews here on the channel, I was doing their review, and here's what happened. So one thing I would always do is I would test the kill switch functionality on VPNs. So with this Fastest VPN, by the way, please do not use this VPN. But I learned my lesson. I installed this on my actual operating system that I was doing work on. And so I log in, I open my task manager. This was back on Windows when I was testing this. I cut the frickin' app, right? It's gone, it cancels out, the firewall is activated. Here's the problem. The way that they did their firewall was that it still was activated, but it didn't keep you logged in. It needed the internet to be able to log you in each time. It didn't save the credentials. So when I opened the client back up and it couldn't connect to the internet, I was just locked out. And I couldn't disable the frickin' kill switch. There was no way to disable the kill switch or enable it unless you were logged in. But if you force quit it, do you guys see what I'm saying? So long story short, because of this stupid oversight from these people, I was locked out of Fastest VPN. My computer could not connect to the internet at all because the kill switch was still enabled and I couldn't disable it. And I went to everybody asking for advice. People were like, well, go through the drivers, go through this, go through that, do a soft reset. And also I reached out to their support team. They also couldn't help me. I eventually had to wipe my entire system because of this stupid oversight. So testing things out, fantastic to do in a virtual machine. You get a sketchy email, you get a sketchy file you don't really trust, open it in a virtual machine. And even if you're not testing things all the time, if you're going to school or you do work and you want things separate from your main operating system, virtual machines are fantastic. So if you're listening to this and you want kind of a new thing to tinker with this week, I highly recommend, if you're on Windows, you can just use VirtualBox. If you're on Mac OS, UTM is really nice. There's also Parallels, and you can still use VMware and VirtualBox as well, but I'd recommend probably those first because they're a little bit more high performance. And if you're on Linux, check out KVM. All of these things, within like an hour, you can set up a whole new operating system and kind of just play around with it and see if there's a use case for you. You might not have a use case, but you'll still learn something new if you've never tried virtual machines before. So congrats, and hopefully at least one of you who listened to this actually goes and tries out virtual machines for the first time. The wins I want to share from Austin. Convince my family to switch to Proton, Gmail, or device-provided email app to Fairmail. Gmail or device-provided email app to Fairmail. I'm not sure I follow there. Device-provided gallery app to Avis Gallery. Switched from Google to Ecosia. I never know how to say Ecosia. Does someone want to give me a pronunciation in the live chat? Is it Ecosia? Ecosia? And they already use Start Page, learning how to use Obsidian and Lunatask. Thank you for sharing Lunatask. Cool, lots of good stuff. Big props to Austin here. The family to Proton one. Someone in the live chat earlier also said that. So I'm seeing a few people have some success moving others to the Proton ecosystem. I'm actually really mixed on that. I mean, first off, it's good, but I just feel like if I move people in my life to the Proton ecosystem, I don't know if they'd be happy with me. So maybe some of the things like the Proton Mail I think would be fine, but like Proton Calendar I think would drive people up the wall, and Proton Drive would as well. So yeah, let me know. And then these all sound like wins, even though I don't fully understand them. So if you could expand maybe next week, let me know. Switch from Google, and you already use Start Page. So it sounds like you're using multiple search engines. Highly recommend. Right now, I'm kind of been tinkering with DuckDuckGo again, but I also like Brave Search and still use Brave Search. We have a lot of recommendations for search engines on our website, techlore.tech/resources. So if you want to see some recommended search engines, there you go. And then Lunatask. So I made my Lunatask review, and I guess a minor update if anybody cares. Still been loving it. Still hasn't really fixed or addressed my issues with it in the review, but that's okay because it's still like the best thing I've found for that particular use case. Like I still haven't found something that's end-to-end encrypted, that has that feature set all in one place, and that is cross-platform, including on Linux. So it's pretty hard to beat Lunatask. Right now, I just haven't found anything as good as Lunatask. But I really hope they address some of my complaints from that review because it's not perfect, but it's still the best that I've found. We got a regular Unknown Ghost. They're really active on our forum. They set up an encrypted secure folder on their unencrypted server. Do they say what they use? It's a virtual hard disk. Unlocked automatically using PAM when the PC boots. It's actually crazy. I can mount it into my server. Okay, very technical stuff. From what I'm gathering here, it sounds like you use the firmware or the hardware on your computer to unlock the drive, and then you mount it, which is pretty cool. It sounds pretty complicated, and I've never set anything up like this, kind of beyond my expertise. But it sounds like a big win. If anybody is checking this out and it sounds like a complicated version, you might be able to replicate this using something like Veracrypt, I assume. But it's probably not going to be as clean as whatever he's doing because it sounds like his is a little bit more of a polished version of that. Oh, I will now pause here and go to the comments. Did you check out Gitee and Bunny DNS? So yes, I did check out Bunny DNS. And it seems really cool. So from what I can tell, it's almost like Cloudflare DNS, but it's got a lot more features and allows you to do just a lot more things. Way more than I need. I've actually been trying to simplify my DNS. So lately I'm just testing out just Mullvad's DNS with the basic filters. But if you're somebody who needs DDoS protection, you need to be able to use your DNS to access tons of different things. I think Bunny DNS looked cool. I still haven't used it, but based on the site, I actually know what it is now on a basic level. So is there a reason you like Bunny DNS, Austin? Where does it fit in your workflow? Yeah. And then let's see here. God, I just want to click away. Let's see. The only issue I've seen with Proton Mail, maybe not just Proton Mail, but how my email now gets flagged by spam. Usually goes to a spam folder. Yeah, make sure A, you're configuring it properly. 2, this is really stupid and I wish Proton would warn users about this because I actually did this on my end. You might not be doing this at all, but just PSA, big warning, if you have an emoji in your name, in your display name on Proton Mail, that's actually shown as your display name to other people. which actually was not obvious to me based on the UI of Proton Mail. They don't really make that super clear. They make it seem like it's your like display name within the Proton ecosystem, not the display name that's actually given as like a contact name to everyone you're emailing. And I had an emoji in my name, and the emoji was what was triggering me to go in everybody's spam inbox. Literally the second I got rid of the emoji, I went to people's regular inbox. So that might not be the situation you're in. Obviously, you're using, Proton, and it's more likely to be flagged as spam as maybe a regular email provider. But just something to throw by anybody, and I hope that solves somebody's problem out there. Also, if you use a custom domain with Proton, you might be able to kind of get around this a little bit as well, which is how I use Proton. I use my own custom domain. So just different things to play with. Jay says, keep up the good work. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. And yes, thank you. Hi, hello, Pishbot. I feel like I said that in the most like American way possible, and it's just not how you say it. It is Friday again. Hello. What Linux distro do I use? Yeah, so my VMs right now that I'm using for Linux, well, so it's not technically Linux, but one of the laptops I'm playing with right now, the review is going to come out soon, has been Qubes. But in terms of like the VMs that I'm running on this laptop right here, it's typically Fedora or Ubuntu, mainly because they have some stronger ARM support-ish. But I'm pretty disappointed overall in like the ARM support on the Linux side of things. It's pretty terrible. And yeah, those are kind of the main options that I kind of go between. Let's see, Kali. Don't use Kali. Okay. Yes. Christopher also said this as well, what I said about Proton. Opinion on Cloaked. Yeah, so so they reached out to me, man, it's probably been like 6 months now, time flies. They reached out to me, and I actually really enjoyed like my initial communication with them. And I got some good energy, and then some things changed internally, like within their team, that I don't need to like super dive into, but I didn't get as good of vibes from them, and I have a test account. I did test it out, and it seemed good. So if, I don't think anyone should avoid it, but mixed on it so far, just based on like my interactions with the team and like with the testing I've done. If you use it and you enjoy it, definitely let me know why and what you like about it, so I kind of can like, chase after those things and see how legitimate those use cases are for, because I'm making content for like thousands of people, like, how many people does that apply to? But yeah, really cool concept. I will say that it is a bit misleading because I don't think that they use like real numbers. So like I still think to this day, like a lot of them are VoIP numbers, so it might not work on a lot of websites. But if anyone has a different experience, please let me know. A lot of you guys sharing your feedback on services helps me like evaluate services as well, because me reviewing is one data point, but seeing everybody else's experience is really helpful as well. Let's see. Pishbot. I said it perfectly. Wow. What's your favorite Mastodon client? Oh, Elk. Oh, it's not even, there's no yeah, my favorite Mastodon client, people, is Elk. There is no comparison whatsoever. So Elk is entirely web-based, yet it's still better than every other native Mastodon client out there. I actually can't stand the regular web app. You can't have multiple user accounts. It doesn't have like a system theme, so if you go between light and dark mode, it doesn't automatically transition. It doesn't even show like frickin' reblogs and favorites by default. I really do not like Mastodon's web client, and I think it's actually a really bad web interface by default for people who are using Mastodon for the first time. I do like some native clients. I've tried some apps, but ultimately I always end up back on Elk. Elk is like just so clean, so smooth, great UI, great UX. I wish that like Elk was actually the default web client for Mastodon, if not just the default client in general. Like it's just so good. So I'm an Elk fan. It's still, I think, an alpha. Yeah, it's still better than everything else I've used. So personal opinion, Elk, but I just haven't found anything better. Okay, I'm gonna tackle this Cubes question, and then I'm gonna get back into the wins. So my thoughts on QubesOS. So I do want to do a dedicated Cubes review. So the review that I'm putting together right now is a Nova custom review, which is the laptop that's running Cubes. It's a Cubes certified laptop, so everything runs as intended, which is fantastic. And it's hard to not like talk about Cubes in the review. So I do bring up Cubes in the review, but it's not a Cubes review. It's a laptop review. However, down the road, I do want to do a dedicated review, so I'll flush out some more of my thoughts in that. Flesh out my thoughts in that. And I don't like it. Like, I think that's the best way to put it. I love the concept of Cubes. It's very secure, very good, cool operating system. And it's also just like, it's such a wasted opportunity too. Like, I think everybody should try Cubes first off, because I think the ideas and the principles and the ideas behind Cubes is something that can be embraced in every other operating system out there. So until you use Cubes and kind of see how it works, you'll always kind of see operating systems in kind of a warped way because you never actually see how cool it can be on Cubes. Why I think Cubes is such a lost opportunity is it's like the people who designed it just don't give a damn about like making it usable to the average person. Like the things in Cubes are branded as like being this advanced, super hard to access thing, and that just needs to go away. Like it needs to be easy to use. And they do a great job with documentation. They do a great job with like detailing how features work, but the interface and just like how clunky things are to set up, do, and use are just kind of unnecessary. Like I'm using it, I'm like, wow, that was like 4 or 5 extra steps for something that should have just been 1 step. So it's fun to learn, really enjoy it, think everybody should try it. And for many of you listening to this, it's probably a perfectly awesome operating system. And even for me in a lot of ways, it's pretty awesome. But it's just so rough around the edges, and I think it's kind of a lost opportunity. I think if somebody were to clean up QubesOS, make it super clean, polished, have a nice DE, right? Like it needs to look nice and feel nice, and it needs to be more accessible, and it should have a nice little like intro when you open it and just kind of break things down and tell you where to go and walk through, like give out a hand to users, help them out. Until that happens, Cubes is kind of a lost cause for me. Like that just needs to be the priority for the project if they want like mainstream adoption in any way. If they don't want mainstream adoption, they want it to be niche, then it's their project. But those are my personal thoughts on Cubes. And again, it's an incredible service. Everybody should try it. I just will not be recommending it to anybody I know in real life unless they're more technical. So those are my thoughts. Let's see here. Back to the wins. Indirect wins. They learned a lot about tech and privacy tech in general that relates to policy licenses because of the Mozilla Firefox fiasco. Lesson here is to not be inflexible with any tool you use, and one should always know alternatives to each so you can move to better options away from inshittifying ones. Yeah. And this is a good lesson in general, right? Like regardless if you think the Firefox thing's a big deal or not, you always need to have backups ready to go. We've talked about Signal's had downtime and people couldn't communicate on Signal. iMessages had downtime, Facebook Messenger, all of these messengers have had downtime. And when that happens, what do you do with someone that you need to communicate with right then and there? Have you established a backup method of communicating with them? What happens if Proton disappears off the face of the earth tomorrow? Like what happens if their servers are just taken offline? Like what happens to your emails? What do you do? So I think people really need to always have backups in place to at least their most critical software, which includes software that holds your most sensitive data. So password managers, you should have a backup of your password manager, and also includes things like communication and the ability to talk to other people. So really, 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 really prioritize backups here. They also learn new things from the great privacy and security articles forum members share that helps you keep with your tech knowledge base and industry know-how. The more you read, learn, and understand, the better your decision making. Yeah, I think it's great. And hey, shameless plug, I think the forum is a great place to do that. It doesn't have to be our forum. I think that you can join any forum that's spreading good information or community or articles, whoever's doing them. like just get value from it. But like, please, like, learn, educate yourself. And that's kind of what I try to do here on the channel too, wherever I can. It's like, yes, I like that you all like listen to me and like listen to what I say, but like hopefully what I'm doing is like teaching you how to think about this for yourself so you can make your own decisions without needing to listen to me. Like that's kind of the long-term goal of all of this, right? Is like you guys are empowered to make your own decisions and be independent without me or anyone else like needing to tell you what to do. Let's see. So follow up from last week. So I Am a Tourist said last week that they plan to move from US to EU-based services for some reasons. Let's see here. Okay, there's a lot of info here. I'm gonna just consolidate this. In the wake of the UK's recent attacks on privacy, I'm doing damage control for friends and family who had previously used Apple's ADP, as well as writing contingency plans in case I lose services such as Signal. So I think that actually goes along perfectly with what I just told you guys. So everyone should have those contingency plans, have a backup in place. What happens if you use Apple's ADP, right? And it's blocked, like tomorrow in your country? What do? Do you export your data? Do you move it to something else? What do you move it to? You should have those backups always ready. Shout out to Aves Gallery, love their design choices. I haven't used this actually, so has anyone in the live chat heard of or used Aves Gallery? It looks pretty cool. I haven't, yeah. A win from Kieran. They managed to get their last remaining friends and family on WhatsApp to ditch the app entirely and move over to Signal. And this is kind of just like a thread that I did see here. You know, some people watched Naomi's video on moving to Signal and they had things like this. It became a conversation starter. They soon switched. And so it's just good to see a lot of people migrate people from like Meta, Facebook-owned platforms over to like open source, very, very much so more user-first platforms that give a little bit more about you and your data, that care a little bit more about you and your data. So do not give up. One of the most common things I hear about anytime I talk about Signal or anytime I talk about end-to-end encrypted messengers in general is, yeah, these are great tech, but I can't convince anyone to use them. And it's tough, right? Like it's really hard. I totally get it. But like, I promise you, if you just get one person over at a time, it only gets easier. The more people in your network and your community that use it, the more likely you are to convince others to use it. If you have 3 of your friends on Signal and then, you know, they know someone else, then it's easy to go, oh, all 3 of us are already on Signal. You should just join us here. We'll make a group chat. And so it really does scale up, especially in families. I feel like that's even more so because everybody ideally knows each other in their own little like tight-knit family. And even if it's not a tight-knit family, I still think that it's easier if more people are using it. So just keep up the fight. I know it's hard, but keep trying to find what clicks with each person individually and try not to focus on the privacy and security selling points. Try to focus on usability and whatever is applicable to that person. If you know that someone hates big tech companies, bring up the fact that WhatsApp is on my Meta and Meta shares that data with your other Facebook products, right? Like that's a clear thing to target. If you know that someone cares about customization, bring up the customization things in Signal. And if they're using iMessage, be like, yo, iMessage doesn't let you customize Jack, you know, but look at Signal. Like I changed their wallpaper. Can you change your wallpaper on iMessage? Didn't think so. Or let's say someone says like, oh, I hate when a friend messages me and it's a green bubble. Be like, well, what if you used a messenger where that wasn't a problem? You know, like, so really try to think about usability stuff. I think that's more applicable to people because if they cared about privacy and security, they would already be using Signal, right? So it's more than just about privacy and security. Jordan, who is one of our team members, and they edit the clips and fun stuff on our channel and now full-length videos. They ditched their ISP's router and they're now using an OpenWrt router, which is super exciting. So for those who haven't, I think I've talked about this in one of the last 2 streams, but OpenWrt is like open source router firmware. Lets you do pretty much literally anything on your router. So super cool stuff. Congrats, Jordan. And if you are able to and your ISP allows it, everyone here should try to get their own router. Even if you don't flash OpenWrt, just getting your own router away from your ISPs normally has a lot of benefits for like privacy and security. We already covered armored pixels, and with that, we are about halfway through the thread, so let me go ahead and take a break and get back to you all in the live chat. So user main says they use Cloaked, but I'm very normie, just happy I don't have to do it myself. Yeah, and if it works, then it works. So what do you use? Like, because they have multiple features. Like, which feature specifically do you like from Cloaked? Is it like the password management? Like, what do you enjoy? What I mean by device-provided email or gallery app, for example, Samsung Mail and... Oh, I see. So earlier I covered Austin's wins, and they mentioned that they moved from device-provided email to something else. So they pretty much were saying that they moved from something like Samsung Mail or Apple Mail to like a dedicated, most likely more privacy-respecting alternative. So really cool stuff. And if anyone wants a pro tip on the Android side of things, simple mobile tools used to be kind of like the default app replacement ecosystem for Android, but they got bought out by some sketchy company, but then a fork of it happened because it was open source, and I think that's called Fossify. So if you're looking for like an easy, sweet replacement to things like email, calendar, etc. on Android, check out Fossify. That might help somebody who's looking for something like that. But you can always, swap it for individual services as well. Christopher, speaking of Proton, what do you think about the statements Andy Yen made in support of the Republican Party from Proton's public-facing social media accounts? Oh God, yeah. So I guess we're getting into the hot stuff today. So I'm going to keep my answer pretty bipartisan here, right? I think first off, Andy has already posted a lot of like pro-Republican stuff well before that. So anyone who's been following Andy's Twitter thread would know that like his political statements have been fairly public for a while now. And I think that's okay. Just because you're a CEO of a company doesn't mean you're not entitled to have opinions, especially if they're shared from your own personal account. I think that's cool, right? I think the problem is that obviously, and they really try to make this act like it didn't happen because they deleted it. They said it didn't happen originally, and then they said, fine, it did happen. But they got rid of all evidence of it outside of what people archived. They did publish a formal political statement from the official Proton account. Their official stance on this now is that Andy didn't mean to post it from that account. But either way, I think that's pretty bad. It's bad for a company like Proton to try to make what should be a pretty bipartisan issue, which is digital rights and privacy, security, things that are attacked from both sides of the aisle, right? I just had this conversation on our forum today because people are going after the UK and saying, well, the UK is run by center left. If they were center right, then they wouldn't have the whole UK end-to-end encryption ban. But guys, what country just last week pressured Signal and WhatsApp to build a backdoor into their encryption? It's Sweden. And what's Sweden's current government? It's center-right. And what do we see in the US? We see people on the right and the left attack privacy. We see this globally, how both the right and left attack privacy. So if anybody is, making this about politics, it's probably not because one party is more likely than the other to attack what we care about. It's just that that person has an inherent bias against the other party, and they're blaming the party as if it can't happen on their own ends. But it can happen on both ends. We see people on the left and the right attack encryption, attack privacy, attack security. So that's why I think it was really stupid for, whether it was a mistake or on purpose, for Proton to make a formal statement like that, especially when it's in regards to US politics and they're not even an American-based company, so it doesn't really impact them directly. So those are my thoughts. It's kind of why, if you follow my personal feeds, you might get some political takes here and there from me, but I try to not have those reflect Techlore things. And yes, I know a lot of you right now are saying, well, privacy, encryption, it's inherently political. It is. It's something that needs to be political because it is a political topic. It's a right. It's something we deserve access to. But that doesn't mean it's a partisan issue, and I think that's the problem. We can talk about something in a political way and not make it a partisan issue, and I think that's kind of my issue with this, is that it's segmenting like an already segmented community for no reason. So, yeah, just my general thoughts. So if I would love to hear your guys' thoughts too. If anyone followed the Proton saga, it's kind of hard to find the info now because they deleted evidence of it, and luckily some people archived it. But I wasn't really happy about that because it's already hard to convince people to move to Proton, and like, having one more reason to not use Proton is just not helpful to anybody, especially them. Let's see here. Oh, and sorry, just to finish this out, Christopher asks, do you think that a company like Proton taking partisan stances is something to be weary of? I think it's something to be weary of. I don't think it's something to like avoid them over, if that makes sense. Like, if you obviously if you have a line in the sand of like your political takes, and now you know that this company posted something that you don't agree with, I don't think you shouldn't like act on that. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that like that wouldn't be my go-to recommendation for the average person, especially because I know there's people in Proton who don't agree with the things that are posted. So even the company itself, and probably even the board members, don't agree with what happened, which is probably why they had to delete the statement. So yeah, I think it just makes it harder for people to use better tools, and I think that sucks, and that's why I'm like really against what happened. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm just not that into licensing personally. Like, I think licensing's super important, super good. I like to keep it simple. I think that there's obviously a lot of bickering about like the exact license type that's best for each project. I think each project should just find the best license for itself. And I know some licenses aren't as good because they kind of can like trap users into certain things, and like, yeah, I know licenses can be bad, but it's not something that I'm like hugely passionate about personally. So I can't really say what like the best open source license type is as a whole. I will just say that like each project uses a different license that they think is best for themselves, and generally ones that like better promote FOSS philosophies I'm more in support of, I think, is like generally where I stand on it. I don't have much of an opinion on FreeBSD and OpenBSD. They seem like cool projects. I haven't really used them or like tinkered with them much, so it's something I should probably look into at some point. Okay, I'm gonna do Waffle's question before I go back into the thread. So this is the last question before I dive back into the thread, and then I'll again go back to your questions and stuff. So Waffleist asks, I want to get a new phone and I'm using iOS currently. What kind of phone should I get? So I'm a very simple person when it comes to this question, and I'm going to act like you are a friend or family member because my response to them is the same. Typically, if a friend or family member comes to me, they'll say, hey, Henry, like, oh, what phone should I buy? I mean, my phone's 2, 3, 4 years old and I'm looking for something new. What do you recommend? I normally only, especially in the US, I recommend them 2 options. An iPhone, because it's easy, simple, and has overall better privacy and probably security than a typical Android device that they would buy out of the box, or a Pixel. Those are kind of my 2 options. It's an iPhone or a Pixel. Mainly because those devices have super long software support for security updates. I've covered in the past how things like even on Samsung front, they'll still have Google tracking, but now they add Samsung in addition to that, and Samsung has a lot more bloatware than something like a Pixel. So I just tend to think that Pixel devices, even if you're just running regular Android out of the box that they come with, are just much more minimal, have a lot less bloatware, and at least your only real concern is Google in that situation. So those tend to be the 2 avenues I recommend to people. The benefit of the Pixel route is that theoretically, if they were more technical, then they could always install a custom operating system down the road, which is pretty cool, pretty nifty. So I normally do suggest when someone goes with a Pixel, I tell them, oh, make sure to get an unlocked Pixel from a carrier that doesn't lock them down. Like, I think Verizon still does that. So those are typically my recs. I honestly just don't have many reasons to recommend any other devices out there right now. Though, because what really sucks now is that with Apple's 16E, whatever that monstrosity is, there really isn't a budget offering anymore on the iPhone side of things, because previously when I say just get an iPhone or a Pixel, it pretty much caters really well to like all the price points, right? Like if they want an iPhone, they can get a cheaper iPhone and they can get an expensive iPhone. And over on the Pixel side of things, they can get a cheaper Pixel or they can get a really nice flagship Pixel. So when you like put it that way, it kind of still opens up the window for both sides of the aisle. But now with the 16E, the cheapest iPhone being $600, the Pixel A series seems a lot more of like a easy to recommend budget offering. So I think that is like probably going to be a little bit more of an incentive now, just because of price point. Like price points matter to people. Like most people that I'm talking to, it's not about privacy or security as their first thing. It's like, okay, I want something to last a while. I want something to have the features I need. It needs to run my software, and it needs to be affordable. I need to be able to afford it. So that's normally what I'd say. And I just want to shout out, we got a huge tip here. Can I move this? Who posted this? Johnny O. Johnny O has actually sent us a ton of like super chats. Oh no, let's see. Can I move this? One sec, I'm trying to move it so people in the live stream can see. But Johnny O, this is awesome. Thank you so much. We couldn't do it without like the support that people give like this. So thank you. This is not the first time Johnny has been in these streams and has given us like a huge contribution. So thank you so much. And if anybody else wants to contribute, go ahead and leave any super chat. Johnny, if you want to leave a question or anything, I'd love to shout anything out that you want to say. And of course, anyone else, if you leave any super chats, I'll definitely showcase those as well and like deal with whatever you say right away. But yeah, thank you, Johnny. And definitely give Johnny some thumbs up because that's awesome. And then let me go back to the thread. No, it always feels good. Like it's validating. Let's see. In contrast to all the bad stuff coming from Russia, there's some goodies. They have finally rolled out the system for freezing your credit in a couple of clicks, and I just did that. Finally, some good news in months. Hopefully this rampant credit and identity theft scamming that is going on will quickly subside. Gotta make sure all my family and friends are aware of this and get their credit frozen too ASAP. Yeah, it's pretty interesting because the US is probably the most credit like hungry country in the world from what I've seen, right? Like you talk to Europeans and Europeans go, what? You guys use a credit card, you guys use credit for everything. We just buy things in cash here. And even in other areas like Australia, it seems like they're not quite as credit hungry. But I think it's because of that the US is also the first person to like allow like credit freezes on such a readily accessible like scale. So like in the US, it's pretty common knowledge. Like if I'm going to a bank and I'm applying for a new loan or I'm applying for a new credit card, they'll normally say, ooh, don't forget to unfreeze your credit for this. It's like a 50-50 chance of that happening. So it's really common here, and it's been something that's been common for a long time. But like Canada, I don't think is as easy from what I've seen. Australia is definitely not as easy from what I've seen. And many other countries like still don't even offer the ability to freeze credit. So it's great to see this start to step up in other areas. I hope it continues to do that. If you're in a place that allows you to freeze your credit, please freeze your credit, because now you're standing up for other people. You're making it known that this is something people want. And if you're in an area that doesn't allow you to freeze your credit, just try to contact as many people as you can. I know it feels kind of like a lost cause, but someone's got to complain and someone's got to make a ruckus over it because it's really important. NICs. This week, not much, but getting gradually to my plan of digital sovereignty. They're canceling and replacing as many US-based services with EU-based alternatives. Don't want to get cut off from anything if Trump goes full bonkers. Might not be a top point for most these days, but it's my greatest concerns. Yeah, so I think this is a good reminder that, you know, like the privacy wins. If NICs came in and said, I'm moving from EU to US-based services because I trust Trump, we're still here to like encourage people and support people because people have their reasons for doing whatever, right? And so the cool thing about the wins is as long as we understand their reasoning and they're doing something to move towards their reasoning, I think it's a win. So Nix, for whatever reason, has concerns about the US, and he thinks that it's better to move his data and keep his data in services that are outside the US. So based on that reasoning, I think this is a huge win. So it'd be really cool to learn about like which services that you're moving to that give you more digital sovereignty. And pro tip, if you're somebody who's concerned about geo restrictions or anything in the political climate, one of the best things you can do is self-host right now. You know, if you're really concerned, build your own stuff. Host your own Nextcloud, host your own NAS, host whatever you can on your own, and that way you can kind of avoid all of this, oh, this service is based in this country, which could be affected by this in this way, and that would impact me from there. There's just too many questions for certain services right now, so if you are in the boat of being concerned about this, look into self-hosting some stuff on your own. Some things make it really easy. I think Synology makes this such an easy place to start on. I was stupid when I started to learn how to self-host my Synology box, and I still was able to figure it out because it makes it that simple. And then once you figure out Synology's ecosystem, you can pretty easily branch out from there. There's lots of other alternatives to Synology. It's just what I tried and used, and it worked really well. And I've seen a lot of other people in the community who kind of like concur and have had similar experiences. I'm gonna do a water break because it's a lot of talking. Good opportunity too. If you have any friends, family, anyone you know, definitely feel free to invite them to the chat here. Just to check in with where we're at. A little over halfway through the wins. Feel free to keep leaving questions in the live chat. I will be also getting back to those when I'm done with the thread. You can already join the next thread right now, and it looks like we already have a couple new people from the last half hour. So please go ahead and get involved. You can check out that link down in the description to join our forum. I'm gonna do one more little water break, and then we're gonna continue. Okay, so we have our regular and a Techlorian. You are very active in our Signal group. I see you there every day, and we chat frequently. Also wanted, they didn't put this in here actually, but I'm gonna shout them out. They were really excited, and they shared in our private Signal group last night that they did their first pull request on GitHub for the Privacy Guides project. So I'm gonna also just shout you out for that. I know it's a huge deal. I don't know if they're going to approve that or not because I know they have some standards and criteria. So I hope that you met those or they agree with what you put in there. But either way, like I saw the amount of work and I saw the amount of commits that you did to make it happen. So congrats, and I hope it gets approved. And then they switched Tuta to Proton since they agreed with their family to use Proton Duo. Kind of not super well known for anybody who has used Proton, but they have a 2-person plan called Proton Duo. It's not the Proton family plan. So if you know anyone like in your personal life who is interested in Proton, you could split it through the Proton Duo plan. So pretty cool stuff. They migrated their domain. Being a former Tuta user means I have to keep my Tuta account for my old emails since Tuta won't allow importing those emails, which is a very annoying limitation. We'll also try to take advantage of Calendar and Proton VPN. I've been doing that for a while. So it sounds like you are finding some luck with the Proton ecosystem. So good job. Funny enough, on my end, I've been a Proton subscriber for a long time, and I've been kind of like itching to try something else. So I've been actually playing with Tuta a little bit more on my end. So like, you know, like hopping around, trying different things, I think it's all good. It seems that I realize my friend uses Authy instead. And so is allowing users to migrate and practice Toronto fakeness, so that's a win. Yeah, I think it's good. The sooner you get people over to Ente Auth from Authy, or really many, just getting away from Authy is a big win. If you haven't heard me talk about Authy before, the problem with Authy is, one, it's proprietary, so you're using like closed source software, which, you know, in the scheme of things, in this context, isn't the biggest deal in the world. The biggest issue with Authy is it's linked to an identity for something that doesn't need to be, right? So I know some people would argue a messenger doesn't need to be, and I fully get that. That's why we also recommend SimpleX, we recommend Session, we recommend Briar. Those aren't tied to like a unique identifier, but messengers being linked to a unique identifier is how most people communicate. Most people are used to phone numbers, they're used to usernames, they're used to being able to easily add someone in their contact book. And Signal still provides that, which I think is really cool. I don't see why Authy needs to have that feature though, right? Like Authy should not have a phone number attached to that. And just to speak to this, Twilio, who runs Authy, had a data breach. Part of this data breach included phone numbers that were attached to Authy accounts. And do you know what hackers did? They looked at those phone numbers, they went after the high target users, and they tried to hack their Signal accounts. And they did this, and again, this is partly Signal's fault for having unique identifiers, but I still blame Authy at the root of this, because one of these services actually needs a phone number for what it's trying to do, and one doesn't. And because of this, people's Signal accounts were like somewhat accessed. Now, luckily, Signal still has protections against this. There are safety numbers, there's the passphrase that you need to log into, and so a lot of people had those mitigations in place, and I don't think anything bad happened. But just to really speak to why this is a problem, it's really important to outline these problems with Authy. And then the third one is you're locked into the ecosystem. Authy doesn't let you view your TOTP seeds. They try to make it like this proprietary thing where, oh my God, it's this QR code, it's super fancy, it's Authy only. That QR code is just a string of text, and you can import that into any authenticator client. You can use NTAuth, you can use Google Authenticator, you can use anything. It'll support the same damn QR code. The problem is with Authy is when you scan that QR code, they don't let you ever view the code or view that seed again, which prevents you from ever exporting your Authy tokens unless you like use some really crazy workaround tools. This is by intention. They're doing this on purpose. They don't want people to move away from their service, and they're trapping people into their ecosystem. This is why I heavily discourage anybody from ever using Authy. There are much better providers out there that are just as good, are open source, are free to use, are not attached to any identifier. And I think NTAuth is by far the easiest recommendation because it's cross-platform, free, open source, and it's from a trusted team. Same people behind NT Photos. Really good service. And also just congrats on the whole transition. So I went a little tangent there, and I kind of forgot you along the way, but I really didn't mean to. Still, congrats. I thought you needed self-host. Yes, we did this as well. So if you follow Techlore on BlueSky, it's actually super easy to make your handle your domain. You just add a DNS record. So super cool, and I guess you can check them out on BlueSky if you want to. There's their handle. And here we go, just to speak to what I was talking to. Cubic is a Techlorean, so they support us. Thank you. I was hitting myself for not migrating from Authy sooner. Once they got rid of their desktop app, there was no way to mass export. And I think, reading between their lines, I don't even think their desktop, I could be wrong, so someone please correct me, I don't think their desktop app actually allowed you to export. The desktop app was just how you could download a third-party tool to help you export, because you can like extract it with a third-party tool. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm fairly certain that was the reality. I don't blame anyone for not migrating. It's a bit of a chore, malicious design decision from Authy. There are better options, but having a 2FA client is a win. Fully agreed. If someone's using Authy, it is better than nothing. But I'm trying to set people up into services that work well for them now and later, and I think Authy is just not that option, especially in light of things like NTAuth nowadays. I had this stance even before NTAuth, and there was like not the best alternatives to Authy. Like there's Aegis on Android, and there were some things like Tofu Authenticator and some other ones on iOS that weren't fantastic, but they were good. And even then, I held the belief that Authy should be avoided at all costs, even when the solutions weren't cross-platform, when they weren't cloud synced like Authy was. I still held the position to not use Authy. Nowadays, there is no excuse to use Authy when there's NTAuth. Just my personal opinion. I just can't justify it. Let's see. Terrence also got an OpenWrt router, so congrats. I already covered Jordan's win with their OpenWrt router, so it's cool to see you all kind of move into the hardware side of things too, because there's a lot of wins to be had on the hardware side. Penguin Terminal, who's a regular, meaning they're active in the forum, just started testing out Zen Browser yesterday. They already love it. Bit of a learning curve, especially as someone who didn't use vertical tabs, but ultimately it's really fun to use. Yeah, so I've been seeing a lot more positive things about Zen. I think it left alpha and is now in beta. And let me scroll down to the live chat here. And the cool thing about Zen is that it's supposed to be like a more modern version of Firefox, and it tries to borrow a lot of the things from Arc, which people really enjoy. So I've just been seeing a lot more positivity, so I'm glad it's working for you. I'm actually doing a Firefox alternatives video that should go live maybe later today, hopefully, maybe tomorrow. We'll see how timing goes on that. And Zen is definitely showcased there. I have 8 browsers that I will be mentioning. If anyone in this chat can guess all 8, I guess you win. I didn't have this like ready to go, so I couldn't like put together a giveaway. But you win. You win. You get my thumbs up. So if anyone here can leave the 8 browsers you think that I will mention in the Firefox alternatives video, let me know. The options were actually all from you all. I went on our socials and I posted on Mastodon, Twitter, and BlueSky, and I said, hey, what do you think are the best alternatives? I'll showcase them. So they all came from the community, and I did filter them, and I like put like the most common ones, obviously, but yeah. So let's see here. A few days ago, I decided to have Linux Mint. I've been testing a live USB. Didn't want to buy a new SSD. Installed Mint on the 2nd. So now they have a dual boot drive setup. It's been your daily driver. Made the full install. Made it possible to install non-Flatpak apps for the first time, which I have installed. I've activated UFW using the GUI thingy by turning on public mode, which helps with malicious incoming traffic. Although Linux is not as easy for me yet. I like how they italicized yet. I'm pretty glad I can say now that I can actively minimize my Windows 11 usage. Oh, and I love the customizability of Cinnamon Desktop. What a funny comment. Good stuff. It sounds, you know, if I had to like be on a forum and write out my initial Linux experiences for the first time when I was using Linux, it probably wouldn't be far off from this. So it sounds like you're enjoying the Linux vibes, and good for you. I think that's really exciting. And yeah, someone recommended distro and DE hopping to continue learning more, and I think that's a great piece of advice, and VMs are great for that. I talked about VMs and what they're good for earlier, and I think that's a great place that they're good for. So if you're trying to, you know, just mingle around with different Linux distros, VMs, live USBs. Also, there is Ventoy as well. I think it's Ventoy, right? I'm not hallucinating. I'm not AI hallucinating right now, am I? Yes, it is Ventoy. See, I'm not making things up. I only hallucinate sometimes, guys. But okay, the website is like butt, right? Like don't look at the website. It actually works pretty well. This is coming from someone who's very nitpicky about how things work. I like things to be usable. I like things to be pretty. And Ventoy allows you to pretty much like just set up a flash drive and load like 10 different, like just like how it shows here. You can put like 10 different live OSs on this. You can put Arch on it, Ubuntu, Fedora, whatever the hell you want. And then you just plug in, and then you can choose which OS to boot into from the same flash drive. It makes trying out different distros super easy, super solid. Highly recommend if you're still trying to find the right distro for you. I made a Linux tier list recently that you can watch if you want to see like a general breakdown of what each distro is generally good for. But ultimately, you have to pick the best distro for you. And that was actually it. Oh, thanks, Jordan. Jordan on it. Yeah, so next week's is already live. We already have our wins for next week, so go ahead and get active there. Get in the forum. It'll be open until next Friday, so if you want to showcase your wins and be a part of this thing with everyone else, then go ahead and check it out. And now I will be active for you all in the live chat. And when I do this, I normally, one sec. I normally make myself bigger because people like that, which I get, because then like I'm just tiny the whole time, and the live chat's tiny it's just wasted screen real estate. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, pull up our resources here or something, or maybe the about page. Do I need a background? Can I like blur this? Maybe I like move myself over here. Yeah, that's good. Oh God, okay, that's really big. And then, so what I'm going to do next week, because these are new, right? So we're not gonna laugh at the way I'm doing this too much because these are new. And we know that next week, Henry is going to have a second OBS scene ready to go that he can just click into, and it'll be a really nice transition when I do this. I actually don't like this background. It's really distracting from me in the live chat. What should I put? Just blank? Yeah, just blank. Okay. So I challenged you all to guess the 8 browsers that I might mention as alternatives. Let's see if anyone left. Let's see, WaterFox. I will say WaterFox is not on there. Someone asked, are you going to stop recommending Firefox, delete Firefox, and recommended resources on your browser? I am not. So here's my take on this right now, because I've been seeing a lot of takes about the Firefox thing. A lot of them are very overblown, in my opinion, right? Like, I've read the policy change. I think the policy change is like completely up to interpretation right now, which is the problem, right? The problem is that this privacy policy update is up to interpretation. The problem is people think that up to interpretation means worst case scenario, which means Firefox is just selling all your data, doing whatever, they're gone, they're a lost cause. That's just not the reality right now. Nothing's really changed about the browser yet. Things might change in the future. We don't know. No one knows. We don't know because it's up to interpretation and it's kind of dependent on what the future has in store for us. So, do I think that you should be more cautious with the Firefox project? Yes. Do I think that most of you who already harden your Firefox installation and like already do everything to get rid of all these concerns should be concerned? No. Might this affect the recommendation of Firefox in the future? Absolutely. You know, if Firefox starts doing something like genuinely directly, like, no, you know, we're collecting this is bad, we're selling this, then obviously no. Does this impact Firefox forks? No. Those are kind of my quick answers to things right now. All of those answers leave me in a current position where I'm not going to tell someone to like uninstall Firefox, because ultimately the position that Firefox is currently in is still better than things like Chrome, which is what most people are using. So I think it's all relative. Ultimately, if everyone, let's assume worst case scenario, right? Like, let's say Firefox is just straight up selling your data, which is not at all what they said or committed to, but let's just say it was. They are now like no worse than Chrome still. And they still have much better privacy protections built into the browser. They enable features out of the box that Chrome still hasn't enabled that helps protect your privacy from other websites. So even worst case scenario, you're still better off in a lot of ways moving from default out of the box Chrome to default out of the box Firefox. So that's kind of my position on this. But I am still concerned, right? Like, I'm concerned. I'm ready to quickly remove it from the resources and recommendations if I see things immediately go sour. But following it very closely, I think a lot of people are following it closely, and it is a concern, but Mozilla has done weirder things in the past too. So I think this might be like the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people. The alternatives video that I'm making is just coming from the angle of, look, if this bothers you and you want an alternative, here's kind of the go-to alternatives, but that's that. So I hope that kind of answers your question. And I know I've been getting some pushbacks, but the pushback goes both directions. Like, some people are saying, so some people are saying, oh, you're being too nice to Firefox, and then, you know, the equal number of people are saying, I can't believe you're even against them. Their privacy policy change doesn't even say that, blah, blah, blah. So there's no pleasing everyone, I suppose, but those are my thoughts on it. Let's see. Just started using 2FAS, but unclear if iCloud backup is actually encrypted, so may switch to NT-Auth once I fully migrate. So that's actually where I'm at as well. So 2FAS had a really nice moment because it was kind of what NT-Auth was. You know, like, it was cross-platform. I believe it's open source, and it's end-to-end encrypted, and it's a very usable, solid interface, right? Like, we love that. The problem was they actually weren't opting users into the end-to-end encryption within the iCloud ecosystem. So technically it wasn't end-to-end encrypted with iCloud, which obviously can be a problem if you're concerned about Apple potentially being able to access that data. Now, I don't know what the status update is on that, because I know it's something they at least said they were going to address. I don't know if they've addressed it yet. So in the meantime, I would still recommend NT-Auth. They have never had that problem. They actually handle the end-to-end encryption syncing on their own end, and you won't even have to end-to-end encrypt sync at all. You can use it without an account entirely offline. So it's a really good service. I highly recommend, and that's what I use for my authentication as well. Yeah, cool. Yeah, and if you want to learn more about Entei Photos, I haven't done a dedicated review of it yet, but I did interview Vishnu, who runs Entei Photos. So if you want to learn more, you can like hear me like ask some questions to their lead developer / CEO. Josh, once again asking, just like last week, is this live? Oh, Josh, that's why it's a live stream. Every week, same time, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Whatever that is in your time zone, I don't know. Actually, yeah. I was just gonna mention that our forum, if you're on our forum, it will automatically tell you the time of things, like the widget for this live stream automatically adjusts for your time zone. I just think that's a really cool, underrated feature is all. Ventoy's the best drive booter. It's pretty customizable. Yeah, no, Ventoy's great. If you ever used it, you know how cool it is. Cool. Yeah. This guy's on the Fediverse and posts the best stuff. We are in the Fediverse, and we do post some pretty good stuff. Not gonna lie. Don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty good. Maybe he's gonna recommend Arkenfox. No. How do you do the omg.lol where you have the RESTful API for the subdomain for email? I saw something about a public suffix list. I don't know. I really don't know, actually. I use omg.lol, but I don't know what the rest of this is. Brave, LibreWolf, Molvad. Oh, okay, so someone's guessing the 8 that are going to be in the video. Brave is on the video. LibreWolf is in the video. Molvad is. Tor is. Safari is not. Ungoogled Chromium is not. Zen is, and Vivaldi is. So there's 2. You got pretty close, though. That's like really solid. And actually, one of them I didn't even want to include, but a few people in the community left it, and it probably shouldn't be included, to be honest, because it's not even like out yet. But it's something that I'm putting because I think that eventually that video, it will be a thing, and it'll age very well. I like when I future-proof my content and I don't have to make every video again in 2 months. It's a good thing. Actually, those are 2 that were in there. Yeah, so I will say, like, when I say alternatives, I mention how they're like, what they're alternatives to, right? Like, some of them are better, just Firefox alternatives. Some of them take this from Firefox. I break it down better in the video. Like, I pretty much break down like the 5 criteria of why to use Firefox, why most people would use Firefox, and then how each of the 8 browsers like kind of plays into those 5 criteria. So that's kind of how the video's structured. Let's see. Onion browser. Development of GoIncognito V2, it's going. And there are definitely some exciting updates around the corner, but again, no timelines. I have made that commitment. I'm glad you love the V1. You'll definitely like V2 then. It'll keep like all the things that people love about V1. It'll just be better. Just across the board, which I'm pretty excited about. So if you already have V1, you'll be grandfathered into V2. You don't have to pay or anything. I don't like when things like do that, when it's like, oh, this version you have, but if we upgrade it, then you have to pay again. I don't like that. So it's a lifetime thing. So you'll get V2, but no timelines, because if people remember, I gave timelines for V1 and I was like 2 years off. It's just a huge project, right? Like, so it's not something that I can even try to estimate the final date on, but good progress so far. Yeah, LibreWolf is mentioned. So they're not all Firefox forks. Firefox alternatives doesn't mean Firefox forks. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. Cool, I'm all caught up. No, not Pale Moon. Not gonna be recommending Pale Moon as a Firefox alternative. It's not gonna happen. Okay, I'm pretty much through the chat. So, why your voice is so low? Is it low? No one's said anything this whole time. Bro skipped the Obsidian question. What was the Obsidian question? It's like 1,000 comments in front of my face. Let's see. Do you use Obsidian? I do not. There, I answered your question. Would you like further? I tried Obsidian once, and I didn't like it. It didn't work. It was one of those things like Notion that the moment I started using it, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to now spend the next 3 days figuring out the best way to use this in a way that works for me, instead of just using a tool that works for me. So I'm a little bit less of a like DIY person as I used to be. I used to really like that, and I think Obsidian's awesome. Like, it's a great piece of software, super powerful. People love it. I love how you actually own your data and it's just all markdown files. Super cool. I just don't want to spend like a weekend trying to figure out like how the best thing, like, I just don't. It's just not for me. I think it's the best way to say it. I immediately fell in love with Crypty, for example, which has like almost no customization and does things for me, but it kind of just has like the basics of what I need, so I can actually just start taking notes rather than Obsidian, which would make me feel like I'm never doing quite exactly the best version of what I should be doing. It's so low every time. Look, I'm looking at the gain right here, and it is not that low. So I'm just saying. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and do a final call. I got through the questions much quicker this week. So final call for any questions, any wins that any of you have, please share them in the live chat. And then I think I'll go until the half hour. So we have about 5 or 6 minutes. Please go ahead and leave any final questions, any comments, anything you'd like to get off your chest. And we'll start wrapping this up in the next 5 or 6 minutes. In the meantime, while I'll give you guys time to go ahead and leave your comments and stuff, just want to say that you can join our forum. Let me see. Boom. You can join our forum at discuss.techlore.tech, and you can join next week's thread right here. We already have some people that have joined. Austin is in the live chat. I've seen you in the live chat already. And we have lots of other regulars who are active already. So this just went live. You can go ahead and join it. It's in the description. And also, if you enjoy what we're doing here and you want to support the stuff that we're doing, you can go to our website, techlore.tech. There's free options to support us. We have a lot of affiliate links. If there's any services that you ever wanted to sign up for, you can just click one of the opt-in affiliate links. And we also have other ways. And actually, this is a new thing. We have an unstoppable domain now. So you can use any wallet, like any Monero wallet that allows you to use unstoppable domains. You just type in techlore.xmr and it automatically comes up. So yeah, that's that. All the support methods are always in the description as well. And now, boom. I'm gonna go ahead and do your final little questions here. Do you own omg.lol? I do not. Adam owns that. Fun story about Adam. So Adam, who's the person behind omg.lol, it's a service. It's literally omg.lol. That's the domain. Check it out. That's what my personal site uses. And that's also my Mastodon server as well. Adam, I was getting into Severance, and I stumbled on the Severance wiki, and then randomly on the wiki, it's like hosted by his company. And then it was just this random like thing, because like Adam and I have been on a couple phone calls together, so I got to know him, and it was like, oh my God, like this person I know hosts this like completely random thing on the internet that I wouldn't have expected him to host. But yeah, the person who owns omg.lol, Adam, is a huge Severance fan. Before it was like super popular, like this was back in like season 1 days, where I think Severance is a lot less popular than it is now. And I gotta say, guys, I'm just gonna put it out there, season 2 is pretty like, it's like, it's trying to like keep the mystery of things from season 1, but with like fake tension. And it's giving me a lot of Stranger Things vibes of like, okay, first season, super cool, super original, super like, I don't know what's happening, and like, but I kind of do, and I'm trying to get a grasp of it. But then season 2 just kind of like continues the same patterns, but like in like a fake, more artificial way. And that is why I'm a big fan of like fixed series, like things that when you start them, there's already the ending, and the way to get there has already been established, because it prevents this issue of like just dragging things on. Like so many of these Severance episodes, you could just cut out the episode and nothing would have changed in anybody's story arc. So I'm very critical of season 2. It's still entertaining and I'm still enjoying watching it, and I have hope that there's like a bigger purpose to things than what it seems to be. But so far, I just feel like it's very like, it's turned very like, it's like spoon feeding content now, and it just kind of lost its charm for me. So no one asked for a Severance rant, but I had to get that off my chest. What are your thoughts on BlueSky? As a Mastodon user, I was disappointed to see them spin up a different protocol. I see them now promoting themselves as billionaire proof. Yeah, so I think that, first off, I think BlueSky at least has a better, and Mark, I didn't mean to skip your question. I'll deal with it soon. My eyes just latched onto that one. With BlueSky, I think it does address some things, right? Like it addresses some issues. It at least attempts to have some form of federation, but it's not like realistic. Like no one actually uses BlueSky in that kind of way. It is still super centralized, and I also just don't think the interface is that good. Like BlueSky just feels so bare bones and like yeah, what's the word for it? Just raw. Yeah, BlueSky is very raw to use. With that said, the community I've found to be pretty solid. There's good engagement over there, and I found that like there's a lot more nuance for things, a lot more than Twitter, which is very like I either have yes or no to say, whereas BlueSky I see like a lot more like middle and a lot more nuance. So I'm mixed on BlueSky. I do agree they probably should have just used ActivityPub in my opinion, and then it would actually like interoperate with so many other things, because ActivityPub seems to be kind of the gold standard right now for federation. So yeah, and I don't think that BlueSky is billionaire proof. It's just not, and we already have billionaires who do back BlueSky. I believe, is it Mark Cuban who backs it, or like at least has some investments in it? So it is not billionaire proof. I do think Mastodon is a lot more like billionaire / like big tech proof than BlueSky, because Mastodon is a nonprofit and anyone can host their own server, and there really isn't like a strong like central like corporate entity behind it. One could argue BlueSky doesn't either, but I think like functionally there's still too much money from like too many centralized players behind BlueSky, in my opinion. So I'm on all three right now, on Twitter, on BlueSky, and on Mastodon. I think all of them have cool benefits, but I agree. I think BlueSky should have just gone with ActivityPub, and it's kind of weird they didn't. Let's see. Mark, do you think Firefox with the port master firewall blocking telemetry is good enough? I think you can just go into your Firefox settings and opt out of the telemetry. That's already good enough. And if you want extra protection, then yes, set up the port master, and then you have like two things to kind of save yourself if you don't trust the telemetry unchecks, which I personally do trust, and I haven't seen any reason to not trust them. What made you start doing more frequent live streams? I think they're a great idea. Yeah, I think honestly, there's a lot of reasons. So one, especially because I'm also working over at Cake I want something to like keep me like more consistent with the Techlore thing. It's not that I don't feel like I wasn't being consistent enough. Like we were still on average uploading once or twice a week. But having a live stream is like, oh my God, no, like I gotta get on, I gotta get in front of a camera. So a lot of it's for me. a lot of it is also to showcase our forum quite a bit more. I think our forum is super underrated. It's open source. We host it ourselves. You don't really need it to hand over any super sensitive information to join. And I think the discussions I see there are just some of the most nuanced, positive discussions that I've seen in the community so far. Not all of it's like rainbows and sunshines. You know, not everyone's just like, good job, pat yourself on the back. But I think the privacy wins thing especially has been something I've become very passionate about. There's just not enough wins. And I think if I go back on my journey 10 years ago when I started on this whole thing, there was like no place for me to like express my wins. I would try to share them with people I knew in my life. Like my friends, my family, I'd be like, dude, like I moved to this new service and it's not like big tech owned. And they'd go, oh, cool. And like, you know, they would normally say, oh, cool. And they would at least, you know, act like I exist, which is really awesome. But they never got it, if you know what I mean. Like they never really got it. They never really like understood how difficult it was or why I might do something like that. And I think that what this has done is it's created an environment where people who are now going on this journey for the first time don't have to deal with that same crap that I had. So yeah, it's something I'm also just passionate about. I want to like try to be the change that I would like to see that I didn't have when I was going through it. And so I hope that these threads, these streams can kind of get more people involved on the forum, leaving more of their wins, congratulating others, and kind of building more of a community around the journey of privacy and the journey of digital rights. Yeah, I guess I haven't had to articulate the why yet in this way, but that is a big part of it. And also YouTube likes consistency is like probably like the part 3. So like, you know, getting one more like consistent piece of content out, like hopefully gets you all more involved with what we're doing. It pleases the YouTube overlords who like when we do and don't do certain things, which yeah, like we have to do, right? Like we're trying to like attack like big tech where big tech is at, because that's where everyone is. Like people are watching YouTube, and if we want people to not be using YouTube or get away from Google, we have to go to where Google is. So it's this really weird like balance beam of like trying to like go against the company and go against what they want you to do, but also like following their rules, you know, respecting the terms and conditions, and actually reaching people in the way that they encourage you to reach people. Because otherwise, you know, I've always said, what's the point of like convincing people to care about privacy when you're on a platform where everyone already cares about privacy? So I don't know if anything there was like a single answer, but there's just a lot of reasons that I think this was a fun decision to do. Can you maybe do an editing video? I might do that. I will say my editing has become a lot more boring lately, just for like time purposes. I think it'd be a lot more cool to watch Jordan edit a video, because most of our bigger edits lately have been done by Jordan. But hey, if you guys want to watch an editing video, sure, like an editing stream, like let me know. If you guys want to see that, definitely like let me know. Be like, hey, that'd be cool. If you don't think it'd be cool, be like, oh yeah, that's not cool. Yes, there is a tool out there if you're doing Google Photos exports for moving to like Entei Photos. There's something on GitHub you can use. I forgot the name, so if you can leave the name, that'd be awesome. But it helps you like actually be able to use that export a little bit better. Is there a single thing you have used to help show people that digital privacy is important? No. Typically my approach is like on an individual level. Like I know someone, I know what might concern them, and I'll bring up the concern that is relevant to them as an individual. So I don't have a single thing. If there was a single thing, then I would tell all of you, and then you all could share it with everybody and everyone would just care. But it's not that simple. So I think the best thing is for you to like have common things that you know might impact different like demographics, and then share it with those people when it comes up. Is it worth buying Proton subscription? Really your call. I use Proton for Techlore and for myself right now, and I really enjoy it. There's a lot of good stuff about it. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. There's a lot of room for improvement in a lot of parts of their suite. So I think you should try the free plan, see if it works for you, and if you feel like you need to pay for it to get what you need, then by all means, give it a shot. There are alternatives for like each individual Proton service, but if you're paying for like each alternative, then the price can add up. So I would check out our resources, techlore.tech/resources, and it details like all the alternatives as well. So you can kind of pick what's best for you. So someone said, I'm enjoying season 2 of Severance so far, but I almost feel the cinematography is the first priority with storyline second. I fully agree. Like, that's such a good way to put it. And like, cinematography is great in both season 1 and 2. But yeah, I feel like the story has really just not been that impressive in season 2. Whereas season 1, it was like, oh my gosh, every minute, every second is important, it's relevant, and this is going to like come back and be important someday. But I feel like season 2, it's just like, oh, I feel like I'm just sitting back and I don't really have to think as much now. But like, still pretty cool visually. So that's been kind of my my take. So I think you put it really nicely, actually. Techlore's opinion on RiseUp. It's another provider. Yeah, so we actually have a RiseUp account, like I use for just testing the service and seeing how it's doing. Is it still in like a invite-only system? Because if that's the case, that's why a lot of people don't really mention it much. I don't know if that's still the case, so please correct me, but back in the day, it was an invite-only system, so someone had to have RiseUp to get someone else to use RiseUp, and that alone, I think, is a big reason to, like, you know, just, it can't be recommended on a mass scale with that kind of model. With that said, it seems like a really cool organization. Love the org behind it. I don't think there's end-to-end encryption, though. Like, you might be able to do it with PGP, as you always can, but I don't think there's, like, an easy Proton, like, Tuta style end-to-end encryption. But again, I haven't actually dug into RiseUp in a few years now, so if anything's changed, please go ahead and correct me. That could be outdated information. You guys definitely took me up on leaving last-minute comments. Oh yeah, BlueSky UI is Twitter 2011. Yeah, and it's weird because BlueSky has so much money behind it. I feel like a teenager who's like an intern for like any other company could build a better UI UX. So I don't know like why. It's like they don't care. They just don't want to at this point because it's been out for so long. And like, have you guys noticed that BlueSky, like it takes them a year to roll out like just basic features, and I just think it's really bizarre. So I don't know if that's because they just move slow. I don't know if the way that they like have to like federate everything makes it harder, but I just find it interesting how slow it moves. My state officially uses BlueSky for traffic alerts. It's handy. That was primarily what I used Twitter for before the algorithm buried your tweets. That's cool. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about like the control. Like I've been seeing a lot more people like wake up to this, but like having a centralized company control critical alerts is wild. Like I'm really glad that people are waking up to the fact that maybe they shouldn't be doing traffic alerts and other emergency alerts on Twitter. Like, regardless of whether or not like your account stays open, if the algorithm, whatever, the important thing about those alerts is that they're accessible to anybody regardless if they have a Twitter account. And if anyone's tried accessing Twitter without a Twitter account, you'll know that that's very hard to do. So yeah, using these locked away platforms that don't want people without an account to access data is a big problem. And I hope that that becomes a more prominent talking point. Yeah, I've seen Jami as well. I thought the usability of Jami was a little iffy, but it was pretty good. If you want like a P2P alternative to Briar, and the cool thing with Jami is I think it is available on iOS, unlike Briar, which is not. Briar is also P2P, but Briar is like Android only pretty much. They have a couple desktop clients, I believe, but Jami was a little bit more cross-platform. But it's been a long time. Yeah, if you're having issues with the passkey implementation, let us know. I know there was a user that had a problem, and I don't know if Jonah followed up with that, but definitely let us know. It's something that I'd like to solve if there's any issue with that. What's the best way to pay for a VPN? Cache or Monero are probably the most private if that's what you're going for. So Mulvad, I know, supports Cache and Monero. Actually, does Molvad support Monero natively, or do you have to use a third-party service for that? I think you might have to use a third-party service for that. I forgot if Molvad officially supported that, but I think iVPN supports both cache and Monero, and you'll find like varying other services that support either Monero or cache. So, oh, and yeah, someone just answered as well, and I agree. So, I mean, that's what I just said. I didn't see your response. Ah, God, the frickin' YouTube chat. I don't remember the name, so I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately. I wish I could help. If anyone knows what it is, please leave it in the live chat, though. Chicken fingers or chicken strips? Neither. I don't eat chicken. I don't eat chickens. So, yeah, that's my answer. Season 1, very interesting, keeps engaging. Season 2 gets a little boring. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm glad it's not just me. Man, Josh, I wish, so we've kind of done this, like my YouTube account is used, though I do think it is a Google account. It's not just for YouTube, but like the account I use for this is tied to like a custom domain, so it's not like a Gmail, you know, Google account. But this was so long ago. I mean, Google and YouTube, like every 2 years completely changes how like channels are structured and how it's linked to accounts. Like, you'll see there's like a legacy version and there's a previous legacy version. Like our channel's 10 years old, and for the longest time, like we couldn't get a custom, like the URL scheme that we use is different on our channel because our channel was created after they started using a different URL scheme, and it wasn't like originally compatible with some newer scheme they were using. It was really weird. My point is, I don't know anymore. Back in the day, I could have told you how to do it, but I'm pretty sure the whole system's changed and I don't know how to do this anymore. The way that like you create a YouTube account through Google and how it integrates with Google is like an ever-evolving thing, and I can't keep up with it. Especially because I just have been using the same account now for a long time, and I kind of want to keep it that way to not deal with this. So if anyone knows, please fill in Josh here. How can I move my YouTube channel? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm getting tired. Reading the same question twice. Maybe I'll answer the same question twice without even remembering. I like the simple fast UI compared to all the bloat X has now. Let's not get it twisted, guys. When I say that BlueSky's UI is bare bones and raw, does not mean that it's worse than Twitter's. Because I think Twitter's UI is hot stinking garbage. Like, everything there is just designed to be flashy. It's like I'm in a freaking casino when I'm using Twitter. So because we still have to use Twitter for things on Techlore, and also at CakeWallet we have Twitter, I highly recommend the extension. I don't normally recommend extensions because I'm like, yeah, minimalism good. But if you've ever used Twitter, oh my God, it's awful. So I think it's called Minimal. Let me find it. I'm gonna get you the name. Minimal theme for Twitter. It's actually really solid, and I'm gonna go ahead and just pull it up so I can show you guys what it looks like on my end. Actually, it, funny enough, doesn't look too different from BlueSky. Let me go ahead and change my screen capture. Let's see. This is over in my Brave window. And then let me, here, I need to like show you the whole thing. Sorry, OBS is like not my forte. This is what my Twitter looks like. Of course, you still get the stupid, obnoxious stuff here. But if you go to the For You tab, you get like recommended things, but it disables like trending, and this is all customizable, so you can still like hover here. But this is how I use Twitter. I only stay in the following tab. Otherwise, like, there's no way to use Twitter without losing your mind, actually. I think that's an objective fact. You can't use Twitter without losing your mind. because of how it's designed. So this is how I set mine up. And again, it's called a minimal theme for Twitter. I highly recommend it. Obviously, I just don't recommend using Twitter or most of these platforms in the first place if you can avoid it. I just don't think social media is a good thing as a whole for like your own sanity, unless you're using something without an algorithm and you're using it more consciously. But yeah, just a tip for anyone out there. I don't remember the name. So again, it might be that, but I just don't remember. That might work. So try that out, Josh. Someone likes Alpine Linux. Okay, really cool. I haven't tried it myself, so definitely share what you like about it. You don't like Twitter's UI? You don't want to grok? Oh gosh. All right. I think we're starting to fizzle out here with the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start saying goodbyes. I want to thank everybody for leaving questions. I want to thank everybody who left. Oh my gosh. See, I can't even keep up with the live stream. Like, there's no way I could deal with Twitter the way it is by default. But I want to thank everybody who went ahead and got involved in the forum and went ahead and left their wins. We really couldn't do any of this stream without those wins. And I also encourage you all to get involved and share your wins on your journey. It's hopefully good for you and gives you some validation, but it's also good for everyone else. And it gives other people ideas. And it's a big community way to like get involved with each other. So I hope that this is helpful to all of you. I know it's helpful for me. I like seeing the wins and I like seeing the positivity. So it's good for me, but I also hope it's good for all of you. Again, discuss.techlore.tech is how you can join this, and it's already live right now. If you want to support what we do here, you can do that at techlore.tech/support. That's also in the description. We are on Patreon. You can directly support us on the forum, directly to us, without needing like a third-party person like Patreon. We support Monero. We're also on like PayPal, YouTube, GitHub, like all the stuff. So if you want to give back to our cause, you can do that. And I think that's it. Thank you all again for tuning in. I'm seeing one question. All right, Josh, this is your last chance. Okay? It's your last chance. And my agreement here is I will answer your question if you don't ask me next week if this is live, because it will be live. If there's a live stream, it means we're live. Let's see here. What's the question? Answer this question. Twitter's already bad. The community note is useless and you can't add. There's no question there. What's the question? Last call. I don't see a question here. Okay. Yeah, Gio, do you have a question? All right. All right, I'll hang around in the chat. Gio, if you ask a question, I'll be like live on keyboard for another few minutes. But I'm gonna go ahead and log off. Thank you all for tuning in. You guys are awesome. And I'll see you next Friday. Don't miss next Friday's stream. Add it to your calendars. Whatever time zone it is for you, get it on there, share it around with other people, and we'll see you next